on both Lookuptv and all our digital platforms. Call us today. Or email us on sales@lookuptv.co.ke.
Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am at Simba. Thank you very much for keeping us company since we started the morning drift this morning. In case you are just joining us, this is Lookuptv. Good. Let's then look back at exactly what has gone on over the weekend up to where we are right now. Now, what we do know is that today the climate summit is officially kicking on, and the president is officially expected to open that particular one at the Kenyatta International Conference Center. We will keep on keeping our tabs on that story and reporting to you on exactly what we find important from that particular summit, where we do expect over 24 heads of state then to jet into the country to attend that particular summit. Good. On the sidelines of that, we do also know that the talks at the borders of Kenya are ongoing, and there have been conversations around those particular talks. And before I introduce the guest who's going to join us this morning, I want to take you back to a story again that we did run right here on our news this morning of Kalonzo Musyoka, and this is what he said, that I was misquoted. Now, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has refuted claims that Azimio recognizes President William Ruto as a legitimate president. In a statement on his Facebook page, Kalonzo said his words were taken out of context regarding the legitimacy of the current regime. Let's take a look at that particular story. Once we come back, I'll be introducing the guests who are joining us this morning so we can jump into the conversation. Let's take a look.
Foot down, anasema mazungumzo yaendelee. Na kwa sababu ya kuonyesha msimamo huo, hata na sisi tunazidi kumtambua. Tungojee wakati wa kipindi kingine.
It is a statement that the Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, who is also the Azimio delegation head, refutes, saying he was misquoted. This comes after media houses published stories on Azimio recognizing the presidency of William Ruto. Clarifying the matter, Kalonzo took to his Facebook page saying, I have noticed that a section of the media has in the last few hours misquoted my recent statements on the state of affairs in our country, particularly on the legitimacy of the current regime. On the legitimacy question, the Wiper leader says it is a subject that will be handled through the bipartisan talks. As Azimio, we remain clear that the issues for discussion and negotiations as framed by both teams include, among others, a comprehensive audit of the 2022 presidential elections that in our view will finally settle the matter, Kalonzo said in the statement. The statement continues to read, so far, there has been political goodwill from both sides and we congratulate our teams for this. We also encourage Kenyans to participate in this important process by sending in their memoranda within the given timeline, as recently advertised in the dailies. While reacting to a publication quoting Kalonzo as having said Azimio recognizes Ruto as president, the now Kenya Party leader Martha Karua denied the statements with, not true.
And nobody is going to stop these discussions.
Speaking on Saturday, Kalonzo said Azimio recognizes Ruto as the president because of his stance to keep the bipartisan talks between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio going.
Hatuna uhasama na yoyote, lakini we have a problem na matamshi watu wengine. Kama vile naibu wake enda huko Kambani kwa mazishi kama hapa, na kutoa matamshi ambao iliwagadhabisha watu wa Machakos. Hata wengine wanakondelea macho, wanaona hii mtu ni mtu aina gani, ni sampuli aina gani. So we are going to call everybody to order.
On Saturday, Kalonzo said Azimio has no problem with the president other than being shocked by the remarks by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who keeps dismissing the talks.
That's it then. That's what we begin from this morning. So joining me in the studio as we wait for the next panelist to walk in, we do have John Woho. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine.
Let's begin from there.
Yes.
That we still, he hasn't said it, he doesn't want to say it, because if you listen to what Kalonzo Musyoka is saying, He's saying, well, hold on. I was misquoted. I didn't say that. What I do know now is that there are current ongoing talks that are supposed to settle some of the issues that we have a problem with this particular government. But then, John, if we go back and look at exactly what it is they want to talk about, they're talking about the audit of the 2022 elections. Is that a pointer into what they want to come out of this audit? Because if the audit was not going to, is not going to say, well, who won that particular election, then Kalonzo would have said, well, fine, he's the president. But now, if Kalonzo is saying, no, I didn't say that, I was misquoted, there is no day I've ever said that, are we then looking at some of the issues or the results that we expect to come out from this particular conversations at the Bomas of Kenya?
Thank you very much. This week begins with on a high note.
Yes,
I think Kalonzo's statement is a script read too early, because his sentiments is what we expect at the end of the script from Bomas. So I think this is where we are headed. And I think now supporters of the government need to relax, because now this will be the end game. What Kalonzo did is that he read the script, the final page, before maybe waiting for the talks to proceed. But I'm happy because Kalonzo was chosen by the Azimio to represent the whole brigade in the talks, and he is the co-chair with Kimani Ichung'wah. So considering that he has intimated that he recognizes the legitimacy of the president, whether he did it or he was misquoted,
yes,
for now we sit back and wait for it to be made official. But we know where we are headed from the talks.
It's not saying that we're waiting for this to be made official. It's essentially saying, well, I didn't say that. Your interpretation is one side of the coin. Some other person would also say the other interpretation is this, that on that particular demand for the audit of the 2022 general elections, John,
yes,
they really want to know who the real winner of that election was, according to the Azimio coalition.
Which is okay, which is okay. Last week, you remember, Simba, we dwelt so much on a statement,
yes,
from the head of state.
That's it.
This week again, we are on another statement from the co-chair in the bipartisan talks.
That's it.
So it is good for all of us to recognize that when you dwell so much on interpreting somebody's statement, tomorrow it might be you. And now we are justified to also interpret in our own way that is what he meant.
In his right capacity, John.
Yes, yes.
Because the beauty about this particular statement is that the man, Kalonzo Musyoka himself, has come out to clarify on exactly what he meant. Good. But in his capacity as a core principle in those negotiations, is essentially just representing the Azimio side.
Yeah.
So anything that he says, we should view it with the weight that it deserves, isn't it?
Yes, true.
Here he is saying, I didn't say that. And this is exactly what I said. But when Kalonzo Musyoka, a man leading those negotiations from the opposition side, comes and says, I didn't say that.
Yes.
I know this is exactly what's going on the ground. We leave it at that.
Exactly.
What does that mean? Is he not saying what we don't want him to say or what you don't want him to say?
He is actually saying what we expect him to say as a politician.
Yeah.
If I know, and I think after he made those remarks, His Excellency, former Deputy Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, might have received very many calls insisting that this is not the right time to say that. But literally he said, and I'm happy because the country is cool, the country is calm. And hearing such kind of sentiments, even coming from maybe by mistake, coming out by mistake, if I may say, that tells us that there is something going on at Bomas. And in the question of 2022 election audit, we are 1 year down the line. There was, if I can take you back, there was elections, we went to Supreme Court, all those things. 1 year down the line, we cannot question the legitimacy of a government, because the order or the plans that the government has made for the last 1 year has affected everybody, including those saying that we do not recognize his legitimacy. And if I do not recognize legitimacy of the president, then I should boycott anything that comes from the government. But I want to believe there has been a soft landing of these issues, because what the government has been doing, even if the azimio has not been commenting so positively, but behind the curtains, it is affecting everybody. And we are 1 year down the line.
Yes.
Kalonzo is, Anko Kalonzo is almost giving us the auto statement that we expect from now, the leader of Azimio.
Does it?
Because I was in Azimio, and I know, unless it is said by the main principal, anybody else who says it is null and void. So we are waiting for that.
Yes.
It's coming, it's coming, it's coming.
Do you think it's time now that Kalonzo Musyoka should desist from making this kind of, number one, statements to clarify his positions on issues right now, at a time when those talks are ongoing?
Yes.
Because, and it comes from a very critical perspective like this. You're making yourself clear on a subject that the outcome is already known.
Yes.
I mean, I do not think that the Azimio coalition has come in to say, well, one of the reasons as to why we are doing these talks is to find a way to get the president off that particular seat. They haven't said that.
They haven't.
They haven't said that.
It's not in the script.
It's not in the script, isn't it?
Yeah.
So why would he come in then to clarify his position at a time when he's at the center of these negotiations at Bomas of Kenya? Should have he just kept quiet like the president?
I was actually to say that. Though at some point the president also
They made also clarity on, on exactly what he meant.
But that was to justify that I will say that again and again and again and again. And
Something Kalonzo is done.
Kalonzo now, on the other hand, feels like he has betrayed his brigade. So that is why Kalonzo is not actually, His Excellency Kalonzo is not actually explaining it to us. Because we already know the answer. We already know what he said. He is trying to justify to those who sent him to the bipartisan co-chairing responsibility that, hey man, you know, they are misquoting me. I was misquoted. But for us, we are already aware that that is what he said, and nothing can change. And I know what the president did when there was everybody saying that this is what the president said. At some positions, it is very good to run away from the mic. And especially when there is something that you're sitting on as a representative of a very big team. You might say something, get misquoted, and politicians are always ready to misquote you.
Yes.
Including greetings. You have seen President William RUTO at a function meeting with Raila Odinga, and they share just a minute, and everybody is taking that photograph, and it's all over in the newspapers that something is cooking, and it was just a natural greeting. So when Kalonzo Musyoka is co-chairing, he should actually desist from making those statements. Like his co-chair, Kimani Ichung'wah, we know him as a person who can speak, but he has tried so much to run away from the microphone. Because I can tell you, for a politician to stay away from the microphone, it must be sacrifice enough. So what Kalonzo is doing is to justify to his team that that is not what I meant. You really know me. I am co-chairing. I'm representing our main principle. There is no way I could have mentioned that. But literally, that is exactly what we know. How many times have we had even Raila Odinga calling Mr. President, Dr. William Ruto, Mr. President? So it is not about legitimacy. It's not in the script.
Yes.
It's not in the script.
Here's how we're going to look at that particular story. And by the way, even as we build up to this, I want you to look at a story on page 9 of the Standard. It's a good thing that you have it. Because it looks as if the Azimio affiliated governors are now in trouble over welcoming the president in the Western Kenya region. As you look at the details of that story, John, I want us to continue with that conversation because Raila Odinga was also on that particular case this weekend, where Azimio leader Raila Odinga's convoy was temporarily blocked in Narok as the ODM leader was leaving the Thanksgiving ceremony of nominated member of County Assembly Christine Leimenes at her home residence at Lenana village in Narok County. Odinga still maintained an audit of the 2022 elections calling for the opening of the servers. Odinga also took a swipe at the Kotu SG, Francis Atwoli, accusing him of failing to fight for workers. Let's take a look at that story. Once we come back, then connect those particular details with exactly what Kalonzo Musyoka is making clarity on. Once we come back.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga's Narok tour was temporarily blocked as he made his way to Narok town. The scuffle was later resolved and Odinga continued in his mission.
Fanya mapinduzi juzi. Walifanya uchaguzi. Wakatangaza bwana Bongo rafiki yangu ndiye alishinda. Lakini jeshi lilipopindua likaenda kafungua sava. Mpata kwamba Bongo walipata tu kura 18%. Na yule mpinzani wake akapata 77. Tunaona hiyo? Tunaona hiyo mambo ya sava? Kwa sababu tunasema tunataka sava ifunguliwe.
Mimi ni kati ya wale tuko kule Bomas. Na agenda yetu namba 1, gharama ya maisha yafanye nini? Agenda yetu ya pili ni kuhakikisha mambo ya electoral justice. Tunataka sava ifunguliwe, isifunguliwe? Bwana Ruto amekuwa anasema ati kwa nini hatumtambui kuwa rais. Sisi tumesema hadi sava ifunguliwe hatutamtambua. Narok, mnakubali sava zifunguliwe? Wangapi wanasema sava ifunguliwe hapa?
Sasa tulisema tuongee. Tukaweka pale timu inaongozwa na Kalonzo Musyoka ambayo wanaanza kuongea huko. Tumesema tunaona vile itatoka. Mambo tumepeleka swala nyeti tumeweka. Ni mambo ya uwazi wa uhuru. Yani demokrasia kwa upande ya uchaguzi. Ili kura ikipigwa, inahesabiwa, inatangazwa vile ilipigwa. Sio kama hapa Narok County. Ulipiga kura hapa na ikihesabiwa hapa. Na matokeo yakatangazwa kule Bomas of Kenya.
Odinga also took a swipe at Kotu SG Francis Atwoli for what he termed as neglecting to fight for Kenyan workers, especially with the new taxes and the high cost of living.
Sasa chama cha wafanyikazi inatakikana inatetea haki ya wafanyikazi imeingia kwa kitanda na serikali. Mkurugenzi wa Kotu ameingia kule kwa serikali. Yeye ndiye anasifu serikali. Nafanya kazi mzuri, watu wazimia wakubali walishindwa, waache bwana Ruto atawale na kadhalika. Nasema Atwoli, wewe kazi yako ni kutetea haki ya wananchi, haki ya wafanyikazi. Wewe sasa ufai hata uwe kiongozi wa wafanyikazi.
That's it. Without going into the issues that Raila Odinga has with Francis Atwoli, the details have been essentially been laid bare. Now, John, let's begin from there.
Yes.
Is that there's a connection in that particular story? Yeah. And you hear what Eugene is saying. Eugene is saying, well, Ruto wants us to recognize him as president.
Yes.
But before that, we got to open those servers. So it's not a disconnected story. It's not just Kalonzo Musyoka trying to make himself clear on exactly what it meant. It looks as if it's a uniform voice within that particular coalition saying, we got to know fast. So John, going back to my first question then.
Yes.
Is that the Azimio coalition telling us that at the end of the day, what we want is to know who really won, then from there, the next course of action begins from our end. That's why to date then, we do not want to recognize RUTO, us as a coalition, as our president?
I think looking at the conversation that is ongoing, especially across this week, about the legitimacy of the president, it is something that has come out so strongly, but it's something that we never thought that we would get to.
Yes.
Because simply we know, even if Raila Odinga wants to understand who literally won the elections, the constitution of this country upholds Dr. William Ruto as the legitimate president. Where the opposition says that we do not recognize him, whatever Dr. William Ruto is doing today is in accordance to the constitution. And the reason why the Azimio coalition is actually discussing some of the issues like cost of living is simply because they are discussing with the man in charge. So if they never recognized him, then we would not have him being told, why is the cost of living so high? Why are we doing this? Why are we not doing this? So simply, it is just a diversion. I think it's a diversion from where we stand.
Yeah.
And also, looking at the process that was ongoing,
Yes.
especially from Bomas, Azimio had almost lost touch with the ground, simply because what was happening is the bipartisan talks are going on and nobody is speaking to the supporters of Azimio. Now they want to bring the attention to their supporters that we still hold that position. Even if talks are ongoing, we hold that position that we do not recognize the legitimacy of the president. But that is out of question. Because the agendas, if you look at the script that they are discussing, they are not discussing with an illegitimate president. The case on the table is between a team that wants things aligned in their own way with the legitimate president.
Yes.
So I would call those that roadside talks. They are not reality.
Is that, well, if you look at the reintroduction of those particular agenda items at the latter stage of those inaugural talks on the items that we're going to talk about.
Correct.
I mean, they were steady fast. And one of the things that they really wanted to include in those negotiations is the cost of living and the audit of the 2022 general elections.
True.
John, you might read it as if, well, there's nothing around that. That's just a roadside talk.
Correct.
But when you connect that particular talk for Raila Amolo Odinga, Eugene Wamalwa, and now Kalonzo Musyoka coming back to vehemently say, guys, I didn't say that.
Yes.
I was misquoted. Look, there are issues that we're talking about here. Only after we're done with that, that's when I will essentially be telling you exactly what we stand as a collusion. Is that not them saying, guys, we are going to make sure that we have an audit of the 2022 elections, and only after then would we come and say, well, guys, you saw the servers were opened and now we do recognize him as a president. When you connect the talks of those gentlemen with the point that Kalonzo Musyoka would come back and say, well, no, misquoted, I didn't say that. It looks as if there's a general agreement or a consensus within the Azimio coalition that only and only after the audit would we make a general statement.
There are questions and answers that the Azimio team must always maintain, that this is what we are looking for. From that day of election, that day when President William Ruto was announced as the president, there has to be consistency in what Azimio brigade, Azimio team is working towards. And I'm saying, just a few weeks ago, when there were maandamano all over, there was that question. The Azimio brigade is doing this simply because they do not recognize. So there was that consistency from the election date to the end of maandamano. But after that, inception of the bipartisan talk, actually, those people even who would have been called to the streets went back to their normal lives, meaning that we were almost waiting simply for the answer from bombers, and not a negative answer, but a progressive answer. Because I do not believe that they are sitting down to disagree. They are sitting down to agree. Now, whatever is on the airwaves right now, whatever is on the streets right now, is for the Azimio leaders to prove to the Azimio supporter, who was almost now settled that now we already have a president, to remind him that we have to remain consistent, that any day we might call you back, because the bipartisan talks are not giving us answers. So it is a matter of ensuring consistency in terms of handling their own affairs. It is not a matter of asking whether President William Ruto is legitimate or not. The conversation is from Azimio leaders to their supporters, that we are still on the same page. Even if you have gone back to your normal lives, you have received your salary cuts on the housing issue, you have received other NHIF increments. We still, as Azimio leaders, do not recognize all that. And it is too late. I would say that is too late.
Yeah.
We have already gone back to business.
Yeah.
And we are waiting for Kalonzo to now read the real script saying, we hereby recognize the legitimacy of the president.
Once we come back then, the question is going to be then, why this talk about not supporting the government agenda? Now, the governors in the Western region are in trouble. That is according to the Azimio coalition. They're saying, well, we do not understand why you go right there, meeting with a president whom we do not recognize as legitimate. Once we come back, then we'll be connecting that to all the conversations that we've already had before right here with John online at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am at Kiage Simba, the hashtag Morning Drift.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Realize your home ownership dream by investing in Brookvale Tuala, a magnificent prime residential property located in Ongata, Rongai. Brookvale Tuala by Safaricom Investment Cooperative overlooks the majestic Ngong Hills and lies only 24 kilometers from Nairobi CBD. The project boasts of well-serviced plots with a perimeter wall, graded roads and a borehole. 50 by 100 plots are going for 1.4 million shillings with a flexible payment plan of up to 6 months. To book your plot, call 0729 121212 today. Safaricom Investment Cooperative, the investment partner of choice.
Welcome back. In case you are just joining us, we're trying to make sense of the conversations around the talks at the Bomas of Kenya that we are supposed to be getting results from maybe in now counting 50 days time. That's in a month and some days. That's in the course of next month. We should be finalizing on those conversations, and then maybe in October we'll be getting the results. Now, what the results are going to be, we do not know. What we do know is that the conversations around those particular areas that those gentlemen and ladies at the Bomas of Kenya are talking about. Now, John.
Yes.
I mean, would you call it a renewed conversation around where the Azimio coalition stand in as regards the legitimacy, and I'm saying that in quotes, according to them, of the Kenya Kwanza government? Because all of a sudden now, we've seen those questions start to be asked again. Last week when the president was in Kakamega County, the Western region.
Yes.
Now, all the governors in the Western region that are affiliated with the Azimio coalition are in trouble because the coalition is asking them, how would you invite a government that we're trying to fight, that we're calling illegitimate, make everything stable for them to come in and play politics in your area when what we're doing right now is playing politics? Well, how do you make sense of that particular declaration right there by the Azimio coalition?
Actually, I would say, like you have mentioned, there is a word you have used which is very important, renew.
Yes.
It was there, the question on legitimacy of the president, by the time we went to Supreme Court and all that. But now it was getting old. It was getting worn out from the minds of the people. And now it must be renewed. Being renewed implies that if I'm a member of parliament and the president is coming to my area and I'm affiliated to Azimio, I should actually boycott that meeting to prove to people that I do not recognize, or my team do not recognize.
Right. But do you believe it should be like that, John? Rightly so?
According to me, it should never be like that.
Why not?
I have stated that the president, in as much as politically we are saying, like Azimio, he is not legitimate, but constitutionally, the president is carrying out the responsibilities of a legitimate president.
That's them.
So there is nowhere the Azimio is allowed by the constitution to hold the country at ransom because simply 2 or 3 people do not recognize the president.
That would have been true if we were not in the devolution dispensation, where it is the counties that are getting run by this governor. So you have a right to make your decisions as a county governor. So the national government should not have, I would say, so much relevance to you other than just dispatching those funds that are supposed to come to your county government. So it's possible then for the Azimio coalition to ask you, what is it that you're talking to the president that is so much important that you don't have in your county government than the rest of the governors have?
That is true. I listened to former governor Wikri for Paranya, who is one of the governors that we respect in terms of performance in devolution context, and actually in terms of cooperatives and all that. And he's saying that he was in opposition. But as late as it is, I need to remind him, he wasn't in opposition, because in the previous government, did we have opposition really? We did not have opposition. So I would say that the governors who are supporting the president are very wise. Allow me to say that the government, the national government, shares a certain percentage of the resources to the counties. And the counties rely on the national government to receive those resources. But it is limited because the resources that are sent to the counties have specific roles. They can only do much.
Yes.
So a governor who wants an enlarged development agenda in his county must work closely with the president, because it's all about politics. In as much as we are going to say that people in Murang'a, people in Nyeri deserve, it has to. We are at that dispensation where we rely on the goodwill of the national government. There are those projects that can only be financed by the national government.
Yes.
And the counties can do this much. So if a governor thinks that he is in azimio and he does not require the president, he is not only endangering the development agenda of that county or himself, but also endangering the progressiveness of the people of his county. Because when a dam is made, when a dam is created in your county or region, the county government, with the resources sent to them, they cannot be able to fund. Some of these dams go to range of 100 billion, 200 billion, 12 billion, and yet a county is being given 10 billion to run its affairs. So the governor must work closely with the president.
Yeah.
There is no autonomy where the governor can act autonomously. I do not need the national government. There is no, that can never happen. And in the previous government, some governors thought that that is possible. But it was possible simply because Raila Amolo Odinga, the leader of opposition, was with the president. So national government and the Azimio counties were working together. So right now, if you decide that you're going to boycott the president and question his legitimacy, and yet you have been given the mandate by the people of your county to bring an enlarged development agenda, then we will question you in 2027. And you will not tell us that, you know, I was in Azimio and we were not supporting the president, and that is why I was not able to go and lobby for projects. Allow me to say this. We are in a country that has limited resources. If you are a member of parliament or a governor sitting back comfortably in your county, waiting for the president or the national government to remember that there is a project that needs to be undertaken in your county, you will be too late. Mm-hmm. It is very late, and it's very unfair for the people who you are representing. Yeah. The queues in the Ministry of the infrastructure, the queues are very long because every part of this country requires a road, and there is that road they are putting priority on. So if you sit back in your constituency waiting for the government to decide that now we are giving Murang'a County this much, the other county this much, you will be going to the ministries and you ask the cabinet secretary or the permanent secretary. We have a big problem in our county, and the county cannot be able to fund this. And you're told, wait for the next budget. Because it happens. It is not automatic that projects go to your counties. The governors have to lobby. They will lobby in the national government. So they have to work closely.
Yes.
So they are very wise.
Yes. At this time,
yes.
There's no coalition is saying at this time.
Yes.
They're not saying no, do not do that.
Correct.
They're saying, John, at this time, you do know very well that we're locked horns at the Bomas of Kenya, talking about opening of the IEBC service, talking about inclusion in this government, talking about proper representation, talking about stopping the interference with political parties.
Correct.
That one of the things that the president wants to achieve is political dominance in the Western region.
Correct.
And that is clear.
True.
So they're asking them, why would you do that now? Right now could have been the best time for you to do that. At least probably wait for 60 days, all right?
Yes.
After we are done with those talks, then come back and sit with the president. But not now. That's the problem they're having with them. Not now. We have questions for this government they have not answered. It's what we're trying to answer. Why couldn't you wait? That's what they're saying.
You know, if the president was taking his cue from the Azimio,
yes,
it is not the right time. But if he was running his government, there is no point of right time or not right time. Because if you are a father in a house, you seem to look like you are controlling every corner of that house. And you cannot tell me that there is that point in your house where you are told somebody else is in charge of that section, and you can control every other place, but you do not even travel to that room. I don't know how it would feel. So the president wants the people, and the president is a people's person. And we will see this in future, where even a member of parliament, if you do not perform, the president can simply go to the people and ask them, are you performing? He is a people's person. And even this can be seen even in his previous election. The election that was done in many parts of this country, we cannot say that the president sent so and so to tell the people to vote him in. The president did that himself, and that we already know. So even in this time, if the Azimio coalition have not put their house in order to ensure that even if the president comes, remind him that we do not recognize him. So when the children welcomes the president, you should not complain, because simply they know the warmth that comes with aligning yourself with the government. And now the Azimio leader is now calling out his children and saying, no, what you're doing is not correct. Because I, as your Baba, has not allowed you to do that. But if you listened to the speeches of the good leaders in Western speaking to the president, you would love it. So telling that governor that whatever you said wasn't supposed to be said, then brings a lot of questions.
So is that not them telling the president, we support your agenda?
Correct.
But is that not the same agenda that they were saying wasn't making sense to them during the political period? Because whatever the president keeps on drumming up support, whenever he goes to these counties, he's saying, well, this is the plan that I had during my campaign. I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. Are they now saying, your plan was the correct plan? Is that not the interpretation that we're getting from all these leaders who are joining these political gatherings, saying, well, we support the president's agenda? And that's why the Azimio coalition is asking them questions. So when you go sit right there and listen to the president and say, this is exactly what we want to support. What about our plan? Didn't we also have a plan? So are you all of a sudden then saying, you say now this plan, now we support regardless? And you can't say, John, that the president plan is not political.
Correct.
He's a politician.
He's a politician, Looking at what Karonzo is trying to explain, considering what the governors, the county principals did with the president, that tells us where the country is headed. Because this is a step that we have made and we cannot take back. In terms of understanding or joining up with an agenda that you never supported during elections, it's about you had something, you had a script that you needed to implement if your government was voted in. Now here comes another government, not your own government, the one you wanted to be voted in. Here comes another government, and they have their own script. The best you can do for your people is to understand the new script on the table and try to snatch as much as possible for the people from the script on the table.
Yes. What is superior, John? What is superior? Is it the party that essentially helped you get to that position that you are running on now, or it is the government?
It is the government. We in Africa, in most of our countries, in foreign countries, you understand, like in United States, those who are Democrats
could always be Democrats.
Even behave like Democrats. Republicans behave like Republicans.
And what's
it is actually simply because you might even meet people and you can just, by the way they are mentioning things, you know, you are
a Democrat or you are Republican.
But in Kenya, every election we have a new political party. We have treated political parties not as a development team. It is a bus into power.
That's it.
So it is not a question of whether the governors are supporting the party, because the party, they did away with the issues of the party.
At this particular time then, we were trying to say, well, these two political parties had ideologies that you supported fully during the campaigns. And that has always been the question for even the members of parliament, that the ODM has said, you got to write to us and tell us exactly what it is that you're doing, because you're going to go to the party disciplinary committee. These are the parties that came up with an ideology. Your party is at conflict now and saying, well, we don't even understand how this government is in place. They're asking, so what if today we got that legitimacy, us as the Azimio coalition?
Yes.
Are you going to turn back around and say now, oh, now we're going to stop supporting this and support our party? That's what they're asking.
Exactly.
Where is your ideology? Where do you stand? Case in point, Raila Amolo Odinga is saying, these issues of the cost of living and taxation,
Yes.
it is too high for this country. And so we got to push this government to bring down the cost of living. But then, John, you have governors from these counties who, the counties are also getting exposed to the same taxation regime in the national government, who are supporting the president when he visits these particular counties.
Yes.
So how, in the name of Azimio coalition, are they going to convince the government then to bring down taxation and the cost of living if the governors are there laying the carpet for the president and supporting his agenda in this particular county? You'd like to think that if the Azimio coalition was going to win, John, they start winning from the governors. That's where they have their strongest soldiers. That's the question they're asking. Where is the ideology? What are you supporting?
The question of what the governors are supporting has a very simple answer. I want to understand, in the Azimio script that was presented to the members of public so that they can support and vote in the Azimio government, whether the things that the governors were asking the president were part of the script. If it was not, if those things were not part of that Azimio script, then we are thankful that we never voted that government. Because what the governors were discussing with the president is not whether we recognize you or we do not recognize you, or there is taxation or there is no taxation. The governors had an opportunity to lobby for projects from the government that is in place today, whether legitimate or illegitimate. Now, if the governors decide that we are not going to lobby, somebody else will do. And what will happen? The money that was supposed to be spent in the financial year 2022-2023 will still be spent. We will exhaust the budget, even if you stay in the cold. So if the governors asking for dams to be made in their counties is a question that the Azimio will question, that you are asking for dams, which was not in our script, then I would ask, why then did we want to vote in Azimio?
Yes, same question that the Azimio coalition is going to ask. That you never campaigned at any one point, John, on the Kenya Kwanza plan. Never even at one point. All of a sudden now, here you are then telling the same people whom you sold our agenda, our manifesto to, that hold on, that manifesto, you can forget about it. Now this is what we think is going to work. Because the president hasn't stopped talking about what his plan was and what he wants to achieve. And that every time, even when he goes to these counties, John, the only thing he keeps on saying, my plan was 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to do this, this, and this. And that is the same plan that this governor said, no, we don't think it's going to work. We have the better plan. The Azimio coalition is asking, when did that become the best plan? When you campaigned vehemently against the plan that the president is now pushing to your counties?
I was looking at the profiles of the governors in Western. And they are seasoned politicians. They are seasoned politicians. And they know when to put down a political, an election manifesto, and when to take up a contract to perform for the people. So they know, as long as Raila Amolo Odinga is not the president, whatever they were pushing then remains under the table. So what is on top of the table is what they need to think and discuss and ask themselves then. Because the president, the current president, also thought about my county. I need to understand what was on that script that I never read. Because simply we do not read those scripts. We just say, now Simba, you're in Kenya Kwanza and I'm in Azimio. Simply because you are in Kenya Kwanza, whatever you say, whatever is in your script, I have to be against it. That is where we are at. But I want to believe...
Is that not the ideology? Is that not what we need to get to, John, politically?
Yes.
That we just do not have parties for the sake of having parties.
Yes.
That we are supporting parties because of their ideologies.
Exactly.
This is the manifesto that we had. This is your manifesto that we had.
Yes.
We do not think that that particular manifesto that you had was essentially going to be the magic bullet for unlocking this country.
True.
So we will not support it,
Correct.
even when we're on the losing end. Because we believe that our manifesto and our party ideology in terms of opening up this country, opening up the economy, opening up opportunity was the right one. So we're going to stick by it.
Exactly.
That's why the Azimio coalition is asking, so what? Wait a minute. All those times that we spent drumming up support for our ideology, was it useless?
You know, the question we would ask ourselves, where did Azimio come from? Is it a group of people sitting down, drafting an ideology towards developing the country, or people who have automatically, due to the political whims, found themselves together? So it is not an issue of scientists, economists sitting down and knowing that Azimio country, 10 years' time,
it's going to be like this. Would you say the same thing for the Kenya Kwanza side as well?
Also the Kenya Kwanza. We cannot say that this is we do not have a political outfit in Kenya that has specific ideologies. And this is now where we need to get at. And today we have the right platform where we are speaking about two political outfits, not disregarding other political parties, but we are talking about the major political outfits. We have Azimio and we have Kenya Kwanza. If the economists and the political leaders and registrators in those political outfits would sit back and develop an ideology that we will hang on for the next 50 years, not preparing for 2027, then we would say that politically we are taking a certain direction ideologically. But without that, we are taking directions politically. I can tell you, 2027, we might have a different outfit. Not Kenya Kwanza or not Azimio.
Yes.
Because basically, where did Azimio come from? Because there was that question of what do we need, and then they coined a name. They coined a name from what was going on politically. But let me ask you, if we would dig deep into the Democratic Party, that is the Democrats, they have a history, they have a political ideology history. But Kenya Kwanza, political ideology history? No. It is a group of people found themselves in a corner in the previous government, and they formed an outfit that brings them together, that covers them. But going forward, and this I have seen from the Kenya Kwanza government, and I'm seeing what the Secretary General is doing, is trying to affix ideologies that if you call yourself a Kenya Kwanza person, there is automatically things that you stand for. There are automatically development economic procedures that you will use as a member of parliament and as a governor. But as we sit, you voted in at the Azimio ticket as a governor, play your own card. There is nothing that we're going to push you to do, because basically there is nothing we as an outfit are pushing as an agenda, development agenda in your county. So that is why they are free. If there was that, I can tell you, those politicians would not have welcomed the president.
Yes.
Because they already know what we stand for.
Yes.
But now they are welcoming the president because they feel autonomous and they do not link themselves so much to the political outfits. And allow me to say this, that if Raila Amolo Odinga visited Murang'a today in an event, not a political event, in an event, the governor in Murang'a would still recognize the head of Azimio, and maybe welcome him to speak. But that does not mean that now we came together and now you have joined Azimio. But the Kakamega issue was different. The president invited them and they came.
I will tell you that there's a question that has been put to you that I'm going to actually put across to you. That the Kakamega, the western region, as we do know, has been heavily been supporting the opposition since time memorial. And that's why it's an emotive issue. That even any other governor who calls himself an azimio governor that knows very well that receiving the president, giving him the support that he needs in that particular region is not doing just goodwill to the president, it's also giving political mileage in that particular region. Once we come back, I put that to across to John, and also on the bigger issue now, it looks to see if questions are being put across the Azimio coalition on who's next to take over after Raila Amolo Odinga. Is 2027 going to be again a Raila Amolo Odinga presidential ticket? Once we come back right here on The Morning Drift, you can also be part and parcel of this across all your social media platforms at Lookuptv. The hashtag is The Morning Drift.
How do women do it? Will the real superheroes please stand up? Welcome to the best show on all things women.
You can.
Now we have to tell you, on our show, we're not just talk. We're mothers, wives, working women, your hosts, and the list goes on. We also know how to relax and have some fun. It's living the life. Yes, it is.
So the story we're telling today is a story of passion in practice that grows into business.
We have partnered with the Youth Fund, talk to as many youth as possible and work with them, hold their hand.
It is an expose of captains who have decided to take on challenges in different sectors and industries within the country.
My mentors had also not started as CEOs. They grew up and they showed me how they grew in the organizations. So that's what motivated me to actually do international business. And it was a good experience.
As an individual, support in bridging the care gap, part of me also to offer a solution. I want to leave this world a better place than I found it.
This is the Captain's Arena. My name is Simba Kiage.
Hi, and welcome to Tujenge Home. Your number one show when it comes to all things architecture, real estate, property development, interior design. You get it right here on Tujenge Home. When the food is ready.
You want to serve them?
Dinner is served. Let's go. Let's go.
All right. Welcome back then to the Morning Drip. Let's chat the last part of our conversation this morning. We are looking at conversations that are ongoing around the legitimacy of the Kenya Kwanza government. That's according to the Azimio coalition. And even the governors then who have been welcoming the president in the western part of the country have been put on the spot for doing so. Still, with John this morning. John, look at it from this perspective then. That the only reason as to why there will be a problem with welcoming the president in the western region is that fine, you might say, he's here, we're not going to listen to his political views, we're here to listen to his development views.
Yes.
And we're going to pick that for our people. But in the long run, whatever it is that you're doing in the western region, because we do know that is a predominant opposition side, if we're going by the past elections, then what you're doing is that you're giving the president political mileage. Correct. In an area where you should be making sure as an opposition that it becomes your tough, even for you as a governor. Correct. In your next election. So is that not a lose situation for the Azimio coalition politically and a win situation for the Kenya Kwanza side politically? That's what they're asking.
The question is who is holding the political card and who is holding the development card.
Yes.
The governors, actually by welcoming the president, they did have the political card, but the president himself had a political card. So it is win-win situation. I am coming as the president and I will give you audience.
Yes.
Contrary to a previous situation where a governor from Azimio or CORD or NASA would not attract the president's attention. But today the president says, I will listen to you. Now, it is you as the governor, you know the development agenda you have put on paper. You do not have enough resources. Now the president has called in. So he is scoring politically, but also you are scoring in terms of development.
Yes.
If a governor scores in terms of development, even if other politicians come and try to bring him down, by virtue of aligning himself with the president, then he would go down and tell his people. The reason why I visited the president, or I welcomed the president, we had agreed during elections that I will give you water, whatever it takes. So that whatever it takes was at that time, but whatever it took me a meeting with the president for you to get water. Did I do it wrong? And a little people who have benefited from the governor, the governor's project and the progressive agenda would support that governor. But also, in Kenya, we forget too fast. Today, the president is scoring in Western, maybe through the political and the development agenda. He had two cards, yet the governors had one. But I can tell you, in 3 years' time, if the governors will have received whatever they wanted to receive, if the president would have made his political marriage, everything will be at par. We will now begin from scratch, where the president can either win in that region or the Azimio governor will still win in that region. Let me ask you, if you've been to Kisumu,
yes.
Kisumu has been in opposition almost, let's say...
Sensitive handed?
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you enter Kisumu city, it is not about the county government. The national government has been doing projects down there. And even the former president visited Kisumu and did a lot of things. And they had the development agenda. And that does not mean that every person who was supporting the then president was elected. So we are a people who forget. You receive today, tomorrow you forget. So the governor should take advantage of that and leave their people, even if they are voted out, leave their people with developments and leave political agenda to the people to decide. They have been given developments in various constituencies. The constituents, the members of parliament who were voted out last election,
yes,
most of them had literally performed very well for the people in their constituency. But now we have disconnected the development agenda and the political agenda. So elections is all about political agenda. But when we begin to work, it should be development agenda. And that is why the governors are wondering, then if I want a dam worth 300 billion, you as Azimio, are you going to give me that? The only team that is going to give me that is the government, the national government. And I'm a governor. So therefore, I have a legitimate mandate to give development to my people. And if we would go deeper, we would say, Raila is doing what he has been doing all through, right? He's the leader of Azimio. He has an ODM party and his businesses are ongoing, just like they were going previously. But look at a governor. I give you an example, Honorable Simba Kiage, who is a governor in a county. He has a mandate, political, not necessarily political, but development mandate. So he, in his own right mind, should walk up and down, run, fly, to go and meet and sit and dine with anybody who would deliver development, support his development agenda. So I don't believe that they are doing it wrong. They are right to call for development from the current illegitimate government, if it is the only government that is going to give them whatever they want. And also, looking at the previous post-election discussions and what has happened before,
yes,
allow me to say that one day the governors woke up after a rigorous election and a rigorous fight in Supreme Court and waiting for Uhuru Kenyatta to be registered as an illegitimate president, and they are waiting for them now to take over. One morning, on the news, without, if they tell us the truth, they never knew that this was ongoing. Yeah. Raila Amolo Odinga is greeting His Excellency the President and saying this is now what we call the handshake. If the handshake is introduced, what benefit will it have to you as a governor who declared the president illegitimate, even on air, on media and everywhere? What do you think you will go and feel when you meet Raila Amolo Odinga and Dr. William Ruto sitting down and they are welcoming you, and you are now going to speak about an agenda you were supposed to speak when the president visited your area? It will be too late. So right now, the governors are good. Let them do it. We have a president. And the only people who are asking whether he is legitimate or not are just a bunch. Country cannot be held at ransom because somebody's manifesto was not accepted by the people. And the issue about the server, it's not in the script. And it can never be in the script. The discussion in Bomas is not about calling back the IEBC to go back and open the servers.
You're convinced, like that?
I'm very convinced.
Despite what the azimio coalition is saying?
It is taking us back. It is taking
despite what the azimio coalition is saying?
Considering a normal Kenyan who started receiving the cuts that have been introduced by the government.
Yes.
And that normal Kenyan has started developing ways to mitigate that part that has been reduced from his income. And almost then, when he is almost hitting the point, you take him back to the streets. No, some of them will say no. No, no, no. The issue of tax and everything else, you should have dealt with it before it landed on our pay slips. But you never did that. So telling us to go back on the streets and giving us holidays, we will not take it. So it is too late to talk about the servers. And there is something that the leader of opposition, which is too unfortunate, intimating that in some countries, the army has taken over and demanded the servers to be opened. That is a direction that we as a country, we as a people, would never want to go. We would never want to go there. We have a democracy, and it defines how and mechanisms and measures that you need to take if you are not convinced that the president is legitimate. But we cannot even mention, it is even stale when it is coming from our tongues, that the army taking over to ensure servers are opened, even if he was giving an example, but those are examples that we do not want to listen to as a country.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Good. John, I just want to take a couple of our next 10 minutes that are left for this conversation, just to weigh in on an issue that is now arising in the country. Now, the azimio coalition is looking at fighting for their space all the way to 2027.
Yes.
And people are asking the question, is it going to be still Raila Amolo Odinga who is leading the azimio coalition into that charge, or whatever faction they will call themselves once we get close to that particular election? Or this is the start to the end of Raila Amolo Odinga in it?
It has always been a start to the end for him.
This time around, though, what are the facts on the ground?
if I was his political advisor,
yes,
2022, he would have been an elder, a political elder, supporting another person, because that would have worked. But he still feels that he is in charge, and literally in Azimio, Raila Amolo Odinga has taken, in terms of leadership and making sure that you are in control with of what you believe in. He has been a leader, because we haven't seen anybody else competing with him. He is alone in his line. But I think it is too late to think of another person to compete with Dr. William Ruto in 2027. It is too late. Who? No. If we go by virtue of 2017, 2022, and this has been it. Kalonzo Musyoka and Raila Amolo Odinga must maintain relevance in terms of whatever they ask or whatever they push. In 2017, 2022, I don't know whether you have ever thought about this. What they did, the opposition and the ruling party merged. And who went into opposition? Dr. William Ruto. So Dr. William Ruto was not speaking the language of the government. He was speaking the language of the people. Knowing that every election, the people, the citizens, the electorates have the power, William Ruto started speaking the language of the people. So the opposition and the ruling party were speaking the language of the government. And it is the same today. The language of the government is not so welcome today. So Raila must maintain that he is representing the people, speaking the voice of the people until 2027. Because if he fails to do that, and somebody else does that, then he is not legitimate in terms of competing in 2027 with Dr. William Ruto. And if they have to create another politician to be there, yes, then it has to be now. Because next year, yes, it will be too late.
Let me float on them.
Yes.
In terms of the way we've seen the elections since last year up to now.
Yes.
Kalonzo Musyoka.
Yes.
What are his real chances of being the flag bearer of the other political faction,
yes,
that is essentially going to go against the Kenya Kwanza government in that particular election? Because we're sure it's going to be the Kenya Kwanza government now that
yes,
is in place, yes, for the next 5 years, leading into the 2027 election.
Correct.
Kalonzo Musyoka, what are his real chances?
Let us do a political prediction, and it is a prediction from a known point of view. In 2027, we will still have two political outfits. And these political outfits might not have the same people that they are having today. There are people who will be so much discontented with the current government, who are in Kenya Kwanza, and they will fly to Azimio. And there are those in Azimio who will feel that the government is doing much, and they will fly to Azimio. And we have seen that, members of parliament doing the same. Now, the point where we need to ask ourselves, it is not about we the people believing in Kalonzo Musyoka as a flag bearer. It is the question. We will not elect him as the flag bearer. It has to be the people around him. Do they believe, yes, that he is a competent, yes, person to run with their ticket against William Ruto?
If they
don't,
yes,
then we have nothing to say.
If you look at the way he's been picked to lead the negotiations of the Bomas of Kenya, is that telling enough that there are now forces within the Azimio coalition that believe that indeed this is the man to represent our views politically in the biggest stage? This is the biggest stage so far for the Azimio coalition currently, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, Kalonzo Musyoka is, I would say, has a lot of calculated moves. I don't know what happens. And being appointed to co-chair the negotiations is a big win for him. And as a politician, he needs to take in that. But what I have seen him do is still so subjective to the fact that it is like a responsibility that I am answering to, I am answerable to another power of which that power might decide that today you are not going to co-chair. You are not going to co-chair.
Do you believe Kalonzo Musyoka would take anything other than a no in terms of support from Raila Amolo Odinga in 2027? We do know how it was in the current election. We do know the math that was used to take Kalonzo Musyoka out of being a running mate or support for Raila Amolo Odinga in the 2022 election, because it was a Mount Kenya question.
Yes.
And people thought Mother Karua would represent the face of Mount Kenya,
yes,
because it was either Mother Karua or Kalonzo Musyoka.
Correct.
Do you think now, going by the pool that Mother Karua had from Mount Kenya and all the analysis that we did in terms of what was expected or not expected from the Mount Kenya region in as much as Mother Karua was concerned, that Kalonzo Musyoka now is going to say, it's fine, let somebody else take the mantle?
You know, Kalonzo Musyoka, it's not misquoting him this time. It must be somewhere in the news and also on the media.
Yes.
Before they joined together in the previous election, he was quoted saying that he might not be in his right senses if he supports Raila Odinga this time round. But also, it is the question, can you pull up enough muscle? It is the question of what are you bringing on the table. So whatever Kalonzo Musyoka brought on the table, compared to what the Azimio were looking to achieve, it wouldn't guarantee him the flag bearer position. And allow me to also look at what Kalonzo Musyoka has gone through. Kalonzo Musyoka is a good leader. In the previous 2022 general election, for you to be a running mate to His Eminent Raila Amolo Odinga, they went through an interview. And the interview was rigorous. The appointments, I never expected that now that they have, if we would predict in 2027, if Raila takes up the position of the flag bearer, we would expect Mother Karua, because she has been there. We would expect Musyoka Kalonzo, he has been there before.
Yes.
We would also expect maybe Mother Karua and
Oparanya as well.
Oparanya, you see? Now, if we are the people who are predicting that way, and yet the leader himself believes that you have to go through a few people to talk to you and discuss with you so that we can pull you in, Kalonzo Musyoka must pull a political muscle that will give him a bargaining energy, not only in Kenya Kwanza or in Azimio, but also among the Kenyans. Because if you go in, for instance, you go to Nyandarua and you're sitting there and you're drinking a cup of tea and you're telling someone, think about it, Kalonzo Musyoka as the president. Whatever that person says tells you the amount of assignment that the flag bearer against William Ruto has to do before he is given that flag. So does Amolo Odinga Raila believe that Kalonzo Musyoka would take that flag and also ensure that the 6 million plus votes that are garnered by Azimio goes to him? Is it possible? So that is the question.
What are the chances for Raila Amolo Odinga again in 2027? John, it looks as if that even within the party now,
yes,
it looks as if we gotta get somebody different now.
Correct.
This time around. It can't be Raila Amolo Odinga as well. We do not know how it's gonna be.
True.
And if you look at the way Raila Amolo Odinga has been behaving and talking lately, does it look like a man who essentially wants to hand over the mantle for the Azimio coalition for somebody else for 2027?
Not yet.
What makes you believe so, John?
And that's a big, allow me to say, Bwana Simba,
yes.
That's a big problem with our Kenyan politicians. They believe that if you bring up a young politician, you empower him, tomorrow he will be competing with you. If I calculate the number of years that Raila Amolo Odinga has been in the national politics, it was actually possible for him to have mentored someone to be almost at a level of Kalonzo Musyoka. But look at the Azimio team. Those are people who have worked their wilderness into where they are today. So it is not an issue of whether he will allow anyone or he has to allow anyone. It is the question of, from the wilderness you have come from, am I going to trust that you're going to be loyal to us if we give you the mantle? So it is a question of, can the leader of Azimio trust any other person to go into it and either win or lose, and also believe that this person has done it for us. Let me give you an example also. They took Honorable Martha Karua, and sitting down with Raila in a corner, maybe where nobody else is listening, you ask him, what was your feel of what was brought on the table after the elections, but by you running it? He would say disappointed. But you know, he cannot say that outright. So the question, Raila Amolo might be thinking of someone, but who? The wilderness they are coming from is unknown. But if he has mentored these people,
yes,
walking up, and allow me to also mention that
yes,
the president, Dr. William Ruto, looking around him, he has political sons. People you can point and say, look at that young man, mentored by the president himself. So even if the president was to decide that it is either him or him or him, he would definitely know this is how Simba behaves, this is how so-and-so behaves. But Raila brings in people who are agitated and they develop the same synergy into one coalition and brings them on the table and tells them, I'm your leader. But can he definitely trust that if you're given the flag, you will garner votes in Murang'a, you will garner votes in Bomet, you will be able to go to Mombasa and speak in their good Swahili and win those votes? Is it possible? It's a question of whether does he believe in the people around him. So if he doesn't, wait for him. The rig will be Raila Amolo Odinga against Dr. William Ruto. Yes.
If you look at the body language of Kalonzo now,
yes,
the support that is given Raila Amolo Odinga all the way to the negotiations, demonstrations and all that, to the point that Raila Amolo Odinga has seen him fit to lead those negotiations at the Bomas of Kenya.
Yes.
Can't you say, John, that is prepping enough, that it looks as if this time around Kalonzo Musyoka is proven to Raila Amolo Odinga as the right man to take over that mantle? And if that is true, if by the signs that we've seen from the Azimio coalition that they now believe that Kalonzo Musyoka can carry that mantle,
yes,
when you put the two gentlemen together, as Kalonzo Musyoka and Dr. President William Ruto,
yes,
where does the weight tip toward?
It is, I believe, like you have literally put it. Why are we mentioning Raila Amolo Odinga in the conversation on Azimio? Where are we saying it is like he has given Kalonzo Musyoka a responsibility? And Kalonzo Musyoka happens to be a co-principal. Why always are we going back to Raila Amolo Odinga? It is the question, him being a core principal, we shouldn't feel like he has been given the responsibility to represent Raila Amolo Odinga.
No, but Raila Amolo Odinga has been leading them.
Now, that is where we are coming in. If we would feel Kalonzo Musyoka is representing Azimio.
Is it not the same way that when you look at the Kenya Kwanza side, we would see who DP Rigathi Gachagua, the likes of Kimani Ichung'wah, the likes of Clovis Malala. Yes. You almost assume the same structure. Over this other side, well, there's Raila Amolo Odinga, there's Martha Karua, there's the likes of Jeremiah Kioni, there's now Kalonzo Musyoka as well.
But looking at Kenya Kwanza, though that is it,
yes,
but it is a silent tone. We haven't heard the president speaking about the responsibilities and the expectations he has put on Kimani Ichung'wah, Mheshimiwa. So even if there are those expectations, they are not so loud. But we literally, as a normal Kenyan, would interpret that Kalonzo Musyoka had picked, not sharing a platform and saying, I am the one who will represent Azimio in the talks. I want to believe it must have been discussion on and in boardrooms, out on the roadsides, on who will be the chair. And it had to be who will Raila Amolo Odinga give the card to chair. So the moment Azimio, we will stop speaking about one person and thinking like Azimio is Raila Amolo Odinga.
Yes.
And stop thinking that Kenya Kwanza is William Ruto.
Yes.
Then that is when Kenya will have attained its political maturity.
Yes.
But right now, it is Kalonzo Musyoka answering to Raila Amolo Odinga.
Pretty much. But take a minute to respond to this. That's exactly the only time that we have for this conversation.
Yes.
The president is expected to open that climate summit at the KICC any time from now, by the way, with over 24 heads of state expected to be at that particular conference. But there's one thing that is glaring, is that he's going to make that particular speech about climate change.
Yes.
When just the other day, it took the High Court to stop him from lifting the logging ban that was in place from the previous administration. Do you think that in itself would out him today as he talks about the effects of climate change?
Yes. That is one, a positive statement and also a question.
Yes.
I have appreciated the position that His Excellency Dr. William Ruto is positioning Kenya in terms of global outlook. And he is coming out as a strong leader who believes in Africa. And just quoting him, he said that Africa is no longer a continent. It shouldn't be viewed as a continent where of sickness, diseases, and drought and poverty. And he stated that we have 60% of carbon resources in the world. 60% is held in Africa. So he is representing Africa, and other heads of state feels that the best person to speak about climate change is the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto. And I am liking that because he is taking up a continental approach. And when he takes up a continental approach, African leaders will gain respect. You heard him the other day mentioning that there is no way a singular president of another state invites 54 heads of state in one sitting discussing about Africa. And he has taken that together. Now, coming to the ban, the lifting and all that.
Yes.
I want to believe that every person who works under the president must have been put on notice that whatever the president says on, and this is everywhere in the country, everywhere in the world, if the president gives a directive or gives an order or intends a certain action to be made, it is not definitely outright that these people need to now open the forests and everybody else is cutting. It is supposed to be received by a ministry, supposed to be received by a department, supposed to be received by his registrators, his legal practitioners, and they they listen to the speech, whatever he told the people, and ask themselves, how are we going to implement this? But we cannot listen to the president saying we open forest and then